Memorial March of the United Families and Friends campaign, which is a coalition of families who have lost their loved ones at the hands of the state, that is in police custody, psychiatric units, immigration units and prisons. And no state agent has ever been convicted of any of the controversial deaths that has happened in this country for decades, from the 60s, 50s. There's been so many deaths, thousands of deaths, murders, killings, brutalities, controversial, lying, cover-ups, corruption has been happening in this country, we know, for decades, and nobody has been convicted of any of these controversial deaths. This is a list of some of the names of the people that have died in state deaths in this country since 1969. The first one being David Amawali. And this only goes up to 2010, the year when Kingsley Burrell, Demetri Fraser and Smiley Culture died. Their names are on this list. And this is recorded 3,180, and that's the names of the people that we know about on this list. So that speaks for itself, that there's so many deaths that people have died in the state, and yet nobody, not even one conviction, that alone in itself doesn't ring right. So I want us, we're all here today in memory of all these people on this list, and all the other people that we don't know about, and the people that have died since.
That the family have been told they're not allowed to even pray at Marcus's bedside without permission. It's a right of theirs to be able to spend time with a family member in silent prayer if that's what they want to do, and it's wrong that they've been denied that. I think it's wrong that the sisters were told they couldn't attend the bedside, and that efforts were not made earlier on to allow the family to come in at a time like this and be by the bedside of the brother who they love so much. And I think the family are right to call for a second opinion from an expert qualified in neurology to come and reassure them that he is going to get the absolute best possible care that he could. And it's wrong too that the hospital have been putting out in press releases and statements things that they are not saying to the family directly, because surely it is Marcus's family who should hear first what the hospital are doing, not in press releases. And what the concern I have about that is that the hospital is more worried about bad publicity than about good quality healthcare, and we need to make sure the hospital comes down, talks to the family and reassures them that Marcus is getting absolutely the best possible care that he can get. I want to pay tribute to the family for the campaign that they've led for their son and their brother. And I think all of us here today, standing here and showing solidarity with them, today Marcus is our son and our brother as well, and we stand beside you as you fight for his rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wendy Hayward is somebody who's also had a really bad experience at Croydon Hospital, and we just, her and her family have come down to have a talk with us and just to speak about her experience. Gary's also come down, who's her son. He's here supporting Marcus. He's obviously, you know, living, breathing facts that Croydon Hospital have made so many bad mistakes and they've carried out so many injustices. So I'm just going to hand over to Wendy and let her say a bit. Here you go, here you go.
Gary was attacked in 2011 and he was in a coma for 19 months. They never thought Gary would speak or eat or anything again, and that he would literally be living a life where he needed 24-hour care. He's a living proof there now. He knows everything, he remembers everything, he's learnt everything again. He can feed himself, wash himself, go to the toilet, he can do everything himself. The only thing Gary is left with was he is blinded in his left eye, which will never be replaced, and he's waiting for an operation on his foot. But we are 100% confident that Gary will walk again, so he's going to live his life as he should have done. But seriously, never give up on Marcus, because you know all he needs is the right treatment.
Yeah.
And he'll get there.
Sorry, in the hospital.
This was my brother Sean Rigg, so handsome. This is Sean, a real picture of Sean, of what he looked like just months before he died in May. Okay. And these are the 4 officers that arrested him. PC Harrop, PC Mark Harrop, PC Richard Glasson, PC Andrew Burks, and PC Matthew Forward. These are the 4 arresting officers who put their hands on my brother, and when he came out of the other side of the van, he was on death's door. And the question is, why is that?
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
Do your job!
Do your job!
Stop playing God!
Stop playing God!
Stop saving money!
Stop saving money!
Stop saving lives!
Stop saving lives!
Treatment for Marcus!
Treatment for Marcus!
Justice for Marcus!
Justice for Marcus!
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
He died in August 2008, and he suffered, unfortunately, with a mental illness. And over half the deaths in police custody are vulnerable people with mental health issues. Over half the deaths in police custody. That doesn't sound right. And what doesn't sound more right is that it's disproportionately black young men that are dying in police custody with mental health issues. That doesn't ring right either. But it doesn't just affect my community, the black community, it affects the whole community in this country and nationally.
I'm here to support the family of Shani Lewis.
And how many times have you been doing this?
I've come to the march every year that it's been on, because I feel until they get justice that we can't rest.
What's your hopes for justice this year?
I hope that they will at least have an inquest and so that we can have some accountability, really.
You think the government's paying attention?
I'm not sure that they pay attention to anything.
Justice now, can't wait for it any longer than that. We've been waiting for decades now, it's time for it to happen.
But this is very user-friendly, because once you handed it over to the customer, it's really hard to get it back.
I'm here to march for justice for my little brother, Thomas Orchard, who was gagged, bound and suffocated by Devon and Cornwall police in 2012.
And do you think the government's listening?
Not at all. We're waiting and we're waiting, we're getting nothing. We've been waiting for 2 years now for a Crown Prosecution Service decision on whether the police involved face charges. We have nothing, we're still waiting.
Have you been on this march before?
Yes, I was here last year. Last year I was getting angry at waiting, this year I'm furious.
So on this particular day, Sean was having a psychotic episode where there was erratic emergency 999 calls made to the police because the National Health Service, the mental health care team, didn't have any beds, which is another problem that we have in this country. And they said, call the police. The police didn't come, and Sean went onto the streets and behaving bizarrely and was having a psychotic episode, and officers came and restrained him in the prone position for a period that the jury found of 8 minutes. He was then put in the back of a police vehicle driven at speed to Brixton Police Station, where the officers claimed that he was in the back of the van, in the footwell area of the van on the floor with his legs up in the back cage with his handcuffs behind his back, and that he was spinning 360 degrees in the back of the police vehicle whilst they drove at speed at their blues and twos to Brixton Police Station, not a hospital.
Stop killing people! Save Marcus! Save Marcus! Save Marcus! Save Marcus! Justice for Marcus! Treatment for Marcus! Justice for Marcus! Treatment for Marcus! Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
Mayday murderers!
When one of the officers in charge, Sergeant Paul White, claimed that he went to the back of the van to give him a risk assessment and gave evidence to the IPCC and on oath at the inquest 4 years later that Sean was sitting on the seat and he looked Sean directly into his eyes and that he was fit and well. But we proved at the inquest that Sergeant White never went anywhere near the van and didn't leave the custody area. So the question that the family asked is that if he said that Sean was okay in the back of the van, then we should have seen a person when he was removed out of the van that was conscious. But Sean was in and out of consciousness, which was clear on the CCTV. And he was in a collapsed state and put on the floor, where the officers claimed that he just wanted to sleep.
Well, I'm here today, as I do every year, to support the United Families and Friends campaign on their annual march against deaths in custody, deaths at the hands of the state. It's absolutely horrendous that families are having to fight for years and sometimes decades for justice for their loved ones who should never have died at the hands of the state in the first place. It's essential that everybody gets behind these family campaigns, trade unions and campaigning organisations, and gives them absolutely every piece of support that they can, financially, morally, spiritually, because it's a tough, tough time. They can't even grieve because they have to campaign for so long. They have to set aside their time for grieving to campaign for justice for deaths that shouldn't have happened in the first place. It's horrendous institutional racism that means that black people in particular are targeted by the police. Young black men are up to 32 times more likely to be stopped and searched than their white counterparts in some areas. And we must stand up to this injustice. We must stand up to institutional racism. We must give every piece of support that we can in our power, not just on this day when we march annually, on every day of the year, to all of the families that need support.
And you see a number of things where Sean had been put on the side and put back in the prone position, you know, resting on the side, you know, clearly in a state of unconsciousness and so forth, and they actually stand him up, pick him up and stand him up and then let him go. And this is at this point when the officers claimed that he just suddenly collapsed. But the inquest showed that Sean would have been unwell at the point of restraint. So the jury gave a critical narrative verdict which found that the actions of the Metropolitan Police more than minimally contributed to his death.
Our God is able! Our God is able! Our God is able! Mayday Marcus! Mayday Marcus! Justice for 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 Marcus! Please treat 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 Marcus!
from about 3 different sets of people who are living proof that Mayday does make mistakes. They wrote off those 3 people and yet they're alive today. So in terms of Marcus's treatment, unless they give him what he needs and stop treating him like a commodity, a disposable commodity, it's not helpful, and it could actually, if he does live, it could affect the quality of his life. It's taken about 3 times protests to get the hospital to move. And what I think is absolutely disgraceful is that the family are learning what the hospital is going to do through the press. That's unforgivable. His mother has contact with the hospital staff and they should be speaking to her first. So as the protesters are saying, treatment for Marcus and Mayday hospitals need to stop acting like God. At the end that we saw this morning at Trafalgar Square, moving on to Downing Street, there were protesters about the death of Mark Duggan, Sean Rigg, and a host of other people, Joy Gardner. And that was about the way the immigration services acted. That was about the way the police have acted and mental institutions have acted. Here, yes, Marcus is alive, but it was almost like they were waiting for him to die and wouldn't have shifted from that position unless there was a protest, unless someone shone a light on the way that Mayday Hospital staff are actually treating Marcus. We had the MP, Steve Reed, Croydon North, who's going to take the way that Mayday Hospital has proceeded with this particular case to the Houses of Commons. And it is a damn shame that you have to go to these lengths before there's any modicum of justice, because what this is postcode lottery, playing with people's lives. Because I can guarantee if it was an affluent borough and if the people had been from a different class, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. The doctors would be actually making an effort and not just writing off like that. What I have noticed, I've been to lots of protests by the grassroots community. This morning, or this afternoon rather, at the United Friends and Families campaign, that is the first time for years I've actually seen a lot of coverage by, I think the BBC were there and The Voice was there. I've been there going for years and I've not seen that amount of coverage, and I think it's because the national press have actually been shamed by community journalists actually turning up at places and actually shining a light on stuff that they should have been there. Yeah, because as far as they're concerned, what it looks like, it's not high profile, so we won't bother. But a life is a life. A life is a life, and it's important to the people whose families and friends have been affected.
Mistreat Marcus! Justice for Marcus! Justice for Marcus!